Hey guys, it's Amy from Homestead DNA, and I just wanted to hop on here and bring you some information about how I was able to actually successfully start some sweet potato slips this year. So last year I tried the method where you take the mason jar and you add a sweet potato on top of it and kind of hold it up there with toothpicks and fill the jar with water so that it sits halfway into the water and halfway out, and then you set it in a sunny windowsill, and these shoots and slips are supposed to just start coming out of it. I started that back in December, and I had zero success with making sweet potato slips that way. They would either just rot or do nothing. Of all of the ones that I tried for months and months, there was only one that gave me like a 1/4 inch tiny little slip that started to come out. So I knew I wanted to grow sweet potatoes this year, and that meant I had to find a way to either buy sweet potato slips, which you can find them on the internet, but there's not that many options for them, or to try again and grow my own. So what I did this year is, instead of using the glass or the jar with water method, I tried them in soil, and here is what I got. I would say that this is quite successful. So I wanted to show you what I did to get these, and then also how I started to help these sweet potatoes increase in production. So let me grab this guy here. Here's an example of how I started them. I just took a big Tupperware and I filled it. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, what soil you use. This is just extra seed starting soil that I had left over, the coconut coir. And I filled it up, and then I nestled my sweet potatoes inside of it. And let's see if I can show you. You see that right there? So I started these about a week ago, and you can already start to see some roots forming in the soil. So that means that the sweet potatoes are doing their work, and soon we'll start to see little slips come out of here. So that's an example of when I started just a week ago, and then this was about 5 weeks ago. So these are all slips that have grown from these 3 potatoes, right? Still connected, as well as all of these right here, and one little guy. So it's about time for me to pull off some of these slips. Some of them are already way too long, but they'll still work, and get them in water. So I'm going to do that real quick and show you how I'm pulling these off as well. Let me bring it down here. You hear that little chirpy chirp in the background? Those are our new chickies. So here's our sweet potatoes. Here's an example of a slip coming out the top. You'll also see them come out the side, like this one. And then other ones will start lower down, actually in the soil, and they'll have roots that are already connected to them. So anytime you get a chance, it's good to try and save those roots instead of breaking them off. So I'm going to show you how to pull those out. So you just take your hand and kind of pinch down towards the base. and give it a tug. And now you can see all of those roots I saved. So those can go right down into the water. I'll probably take off a couple of those bottom leaves so they can sit further in. And this guy is probably going to come off as a whole cluster. Oh, one separate, so no roots on that one, but that's okay, they'll still form roots in the water. And this is like 3 all together. See all those roots there? So I'll shake those extra off and then also separate these, and they'll be able to go into the water. This little guy here that's still connected, I'm going to leave him to grow a little bit longer. And then over here, we've got 2 more. I'll put him and him in water. Dirt everywhere. So here I'm just separating them out. There's 2 separate slips here. Pull that apart and take out some of these bottom leaves since they'll be mainly submerged. And then it's got a good root system here too. And so you can pop them in a little short glass or a taller one. What's neat is with these slips, here's one that I put in last week. When I put them in last week, there was this and this is the roots. But now you can see all of these roots that are starting to grow up the stem. So setting them down in a little bit of water is good for them because they'll start to develop the root system that way too. And this guy's got a bunch of roots. I'm not trying to take them all off, but he would survive without them too. But and then I'm going to pull here, here, and here, and pop them in my water. Here's another example of some really long roots that have grown. These are ones I pulled off last week, this slip. And all of this up here is new growth that was not on the slip when I pulled it off the sweet potato. So we've got 2 40-foot rows that we'd like to plant with sweet potatoes. So I've got a lot of slips to make. We'll see if I get them done in time. Just snapping these off and put them in the water. This guy's way too long. I tried an experiment last week where I had one that got even longer than this, and I had cut it into thirds to see if those cut pieces would also form roots, and I haven't noticed that yet. I'm going to give it some more time. The slip doesn't look like it's dying, so I don't think it's hurting the other slips. So we'll see if that works or not. If anyone else has experience with that, let me know. But I was like, well, that's so long, I'll cut it and see if I can grow some more. And so now I'm left with a couple babies that are still growing on here. So other than just using soil, the 2 things that I changed to help these slips grow better is one, I actually really worked to keep the soil moist. So it was probably So I water my seedlings. It's on my seedling tray. I water my seedlings pretty much every morning. And so these needed more water like every other morning. I feel like that moisture really helped to accelerate things. You don't want them just sitting in soggy water or soggy soil, but I think that having them in moist soil really helped. And the second thing I did that really helped me, I believe, make these slips kind of jumpstart their production is I had them just sitting on the counter like this for a couple weeks, and I was excited because I had them in the clear container, and I was going to be able to see if the roots were growing or what was happening. But I noticed after a couple weeks that nothing was happening at all. So what I did is thinking, okay, sweet potatoes like to grow when it's really warm. Instead of just having it on the counter, I set this on top of a heat mat that you normally use for seedlings. So I just set it on top of there, and it was not even a week later I had a whole bunch of sprouts coming up. So I thought that was really cool. So there were two things I think that really helped me create better sweet potato slips faster. The first is that once I put the sweet potatoes in the soil like this, I made sure to keep the soil moist. I've read other things where they say not to add too much water, but I found that once I was watering them probably every 2 to 3 days, just adding a little to the soil so that there was moisture in the soil, but it's not soaking wet, it's not just sitting in mud. I found that really helped speed things up. The second thing I did is, instead of just letting it sit on a counter in room temperature, I set these on a heat mat. So these have been on the heat mat. They've been growing like crazy. Those other ones I just showed you have been on the heat mat as well, and it's only been a week, and I'm seeing those roots, whereas with these before it took almost a month to see those roots. So I'm happy about this. I hope that it keeps working because I do have a lot of slips to get. So there you go. I hope that helps someone. I know that for me, I was really frustrated that I couldn't make sweet potato slips last year, and so I'm happy to kind of have a breakthrough and figure it out. Well, thank you guys for coming along, and we will see you on the next video.